I'd like to welcome everyone to our October 7th County Commissioner meeting. You know what? We didn't decide who was going to pray and who was going to do the pledge. Do I have any volunteers?
I'll pray.
You'll pray?
I sure will.
Okay, who want to do the pledge? Okay, please stand.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great day, this great nation, this great state, this great county. We ask that you go with us in this meeting. Again tonight, God, remind us it's not about we ourselves, but it's about the people's business. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll move on to item number 1 under public information. Commissioner Sherry Berry, North Carolina Department of Labor, has got a presentation of the NC Department of Labor Annual Safety Awards. And Ms. Mulholland, would you like to come up also?
Good evening, everyone. The North Carolina Department of Labor Safety Awards program recognizes private and public firms throughout the state that achieve and maintain good safety records. The program is designed to stimulate interest in accident prevention and to promote safety in the workplace by providing an incentive to employers and employees to maintain a safe and healthful workplace. To qualify for an annual safety award, there must have been no fatalities during the calendar year and an incident rate of at least 50% below the average for a particular group. It must be maintained. The Gold Award is based on the DART rate, D-A-R-T, which includes cases of days away from work, restricted job activity, or job transfer. North Carolina Department of Labor Commissioner Sherry Berry has issued annual safety awards to the Pender County departments that met these criteria for the calendar year 2012. Awards will be presented to eligible departments. And I just want to give a little bit of information about Ms. Berry. Ms. Berry was elected to the statewide office of Commissioner of Labor in 2000. She's been doing this for 13 years. After serving 8 years in the North Carolina House of Representatives. You've been doing a wonderful job. She won re-election to a second four-year term in 2004 and to a third four-year term, easy for me to say, in 2008. On November 6, 2012, Ms. Berry made North Carolina history when she was re-elected to a fourth term, making her the longest-serving Republican on the Council of State. She is the first female labor commissioner in North Carolina's history. She's a native of Catawba County and currently resides in Newton, North Carolina. Her goal as labor commissioner is to make North Carolina the safest state in the country for workers. And with that, I will let Ms. Berry and Ms. Joyner, her assistant, come up and present the awards.
You know, and I'm bound and determined I'm going to call you Sherry.
Cherry berries, okay.
Yeah,
to my
I
friends,
know.
all of my friends.
And I do that every time I announce you, don't I? I
Well,
get it
kinda
wrong
sounds
every
like
time.
Baskin and Robbins flavor of the month, right? Cherry berry. I like that. It rhymes. That's fine. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you all so much for this wonderful opportunity that we have to have fellowship with you here in Pender County and to honor your employees for their outstanding safety and health records. We're here today to present 23 safety awards to the various departments throughout this county. And think about what a blessing that is, not only to the individuals who have earned these awards, but to the county and to the taxpayers. Because when you have good safety and health programs in place, it saves a ton of money because you don't have injuries and illnesses. It saves on your worker compensation costs. It just is a good thing all the way around. And when you think about it, the Commissioner of Labor, the position that I have, it's the only elected position in the state that my success or failure is measured in human lives and human limbs. When you think about that. So it's my job to make sure that every single working person in North Carolina, be they in the private sector or the public sector, gets to go home safe and healthy at the end of their work shift to their families, loved ones, and friends. And that's what we're all about in the Department of Labor. And we like to do that through education and training of individuals. And we're so proud of Pender County for these wonderful records that you have accumulated. And some of them are consecutive years. You know, we started this, I think it was 3 years ago. You have departments that have maintained those records through 3 years now. And that's a wonderful, wonderful blessing for everybody. So we're honored to be here today to present these awards. Thank you on behalf of the Department of Labor for all the families of all the employees here who get to have them home safe and healthy, for everyone who's involved in this county. It's such a blessing for us to come here and to enjoy being with all of you and to recognize your achievements in safety and health. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Ursula Joyner to come up and read out the names of the various departments, and I'll present the awards. These are earned. We just don't ride around all over the state handing them out willy-nilly to anybody. So thank you to all the employees who have made these awards possible. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here in Pender County today. If you are here representing your department, please come forward when your names are being called. It'll assist us, and please stand still so the photograph that we take of you will be one that you will be very proud of. As we get started with the awards, the first award we have tonight is a Silver Award, and the Silver Award today is for the Sheriff's Department. Please come forward.
I've got no use for 23.
We'll have to have the memory in our hearts of the photographs that would have been taken. The next set of awards are our Gold Awards. The Gold Awards, we have the first year gold for the Health Department. The Library. And also for Public Buildings. For the second consecutive year, Animal Control. Elections. Elections Department. Emergency Management. Housing. And we may have a familiar face from the jail. For the third consecutive year, the County Manager's Office.
Keep them straight, good.
Finance. Human Resources. Information Technology Services. Mosquito control. Parks and Recreation. Planning and Community Development. Register of Deeds. Tax Assessors. And Tax Collections. Figured if she can assess, she knows how to collect as well. Thank you for taking good care of that. Tourism. Utilities Department. Vehicle maintenance.
Oh, come on now. Let's get ridiculous.
How about we just stay here?
And our last award for tonight is for Veteran Services. Please come forward.
Thank you. Yes, it was. Okay, item number 2, Ted Cole, Financial Advisor, Davenport and Company, Financial Policy Guidelines. Mr. Watson.
Yes, there's been a little bit of a change in the person that's here today. Ted's not here today. It's going to be Bob High.
Okay.
He's a Senior Vice President with Davenport and Company. Ted and Bob and Derek Rue were at 4 or 5 meetings today. I'm going to let Bob do most of the talking, but as a background, Bob is a former Deputy State Treasurer and Secretary to the Local Government Commission, Director of Local Government Finance in North Carolina, and he's now retired from that position and now working with Davenport. So I'm going to sit down, let him talk a little bit, and then we'll do a little bit of a handout and let Bob start talking.
Butch said, I'm Bob High with Davenport and Company. We've worked as your financial advisor for some period of time now on a number of tasks. And the most recently, we have worked on developing tax-supported capital funding plan to assist the county in planning for its identified governmental and school capital needs. That'll be in the memo we're passing out. As part of this work, we developed a number of financial analysis that helped to establish the measure of the county's debt capacity and debt affordability. The capacity, and I think we met with you about that, that capacity is what the market will bear, the amount of debt that's reasonably marketable. Debt affordability is how much funds the county can find to pay for that debt service, how you pay for it. So 2 different concepts, but they very clearly fit together. Today we're going to be talking about looking at some financial policy guidelines. We've kind of developed those and working with the debt capacity and looking at your capital needs and those things. That's one of North Carolina's fastest growing counties. You obviously are going to have pressure for capital expenditures, for new facilities and what have you. So the importance of developing some guidelines goes in hand with that kind of pressure that you're going to have for additional debt capacity or to meet the needs of your school, your community colleges, and the county itself for new facilities. So today we'll be giving you an example of some recommended policy guidelines that the county may want to consider adopting over time, and we'll certainly be available to answer questions as in time as you need additional information or have concerns. So we'll provide those to you. The big thing also about policy guidelines, they're pretty much expected in the rating process. And as a county that has large capital needs, you're going to be in that credit market. And the credit rating agencies, it's to the point they really kind of expect a highly rated county, and you are a highly rated county, to have financial policies in place. They're definitely considered by the rating agencies. And as you borrow more money, the higher your rating, the lower your cost of capital, therefore the better debt capacity you have. So it's a pretty simple way to help yourself with the rating agencies. It's an action you can take, positive action. As I said, we've got some guidelines attached to this memo. If you look at the table of contents on page 1, we'll briefly go over the objectives of the policy guidelines. Then we're going to look at some capital improvement budget policies, debt policies, reserve or fund balance target policies. Then we're going to look at budget development policies and cash management and investment policies. Start, obviously the need, as I said, for policies. But it contributes to the county's ability to insulate itself from fiscal crisis. By policies, we're basically setting parameters for debt levels. Enhance your short-term and long-term creditability. Promotes long-term financial stability by establishing clear and consistent guidelines. And of course that also, it sets standards that the investors, when I say bond ratings, the bond rating agencies are providing information about the risk associated with your debt to your potential investors or those that are willing to loan you money. So that's the key to that. Directs attention to the total financial picture of the county rather than a single issue area. Promotes the view of linking long-term financial planning with day-to-day operations. And also, it's policy, once adopted, does not have to stay in place. You probably want it to for some extended period of time, but it is subject to change as situations may change from time to time in the county itself. Go with the capital improvement budget policies. I think we've got 9 of those listed here. basically saying that it's responsibility of the county and mission that the county has the responsibility for the facilities to provide service to the citizens and to provide for the schools and the community college. That the county will consider all capital projects with an adopted capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan is inclusive of capital improvements, basically about renovations, new facilities, and capital replacements for vehicles, heavy equipment, and things like that. The county will develop a 5-year capital improvement plan and review and update the plan annually. And that will take the cooperation of the schools and the community college for that to take place. And that those projects will be prioritized. And the county will enact an annual capital budget based off of the 5-year capital plan. Also, the capital plan will be coordinated with the operating budget. Things like looking at the additional operating costs associated with the capital projects and the debt service and how that will fit into the operating budget. And also a capital maintenance program, looking at what the cost of maintaining your facilities are, to maintain those to reduce the future costs and make sure they're safe. Also would require that the county, in consultation with the public schools and the Cape Fear Community College, identify the estimated cost and potential funding sources for each capital project. And then the county will pursue the most cost-effective financing vehicle to meet those needs. Then we've got a page on debt policies. Basically saying that the county will finance things with their current revenues where it's available or appropriate. That the county will take a balanced approach, that you're not going to finance everything with debt, but you're going to have a blended between debt and pay-as-you-go and use of capital reserves. Again, that's one of the things that the rating agencies look at. Provides flexibility. And when you finance projects, you'll finance them for no longer than the useful life of the asset. Well, the LGC is going to require that anyway. So you might as well get the benefit of having it in your policy. Next item, net debt as a percentage of estimated market value of taxable property shall not exceed 2.5%. Another key ratio with debt rating agencies. This is a meaningful number, the 2.5% of your assessed value. It's meaningful in that it's a reasonable number, but at the same time, it allows for the growth for the debt that you're looking at in front of you. So here again, that's the maximum level. Debt service as a percent of your budget will not exceed 15%. The expenditures, that relates to your flexibility in your budget. Obviously, that means 15% of your budget you have very little to no control over. So the 15% is pretty well noted by the rating agencies as an amount that when and if you do go over that, you need to have a plan to get back under it, and that you don't go over it by very much. Clearly a rating consideration and a key number. The payout of aggregate outstanding tax-supported debt principal shall be no more than 55% repaid, no less than 55% repaid in 10 years. This is a little different. Governmental debt related to a mortgage, you buy a house, as you may know, the first payment is almost all interest, very little principal. Of course, with the low interest rates now, it's not as bad as it used to be, but at one time, you were paying almost no principal. In municipal debt, they look at a level principal structure for your overall debt, which is to say a 10-year payback. They're looking for over 50% of that to be paid back in the 10-year period. So you want to set a level, we suggest 55%. And if you remember in the past, I think we passed out something that reflected higher levels for the norm, for the medians. It just depends on when you issue the debt, but that's a reasonable amount of payback. That indicates you're not backloading your debt, putting that payment off for another day. Also have suggested policy guidelines on your reserve policy or your fund balance target, if you will. We've got an amount of about 20%. I think that's probably in the range of the statewide average for counties, above your unassigned fund balance, which is an accounting term, but it really means your free balance, the unobligated balance of your general fund at the end of each year. Basically saying that any amount of that over that target may be used for one-time capital expenditures or one-time events. Don't get it into your operating budget. It's not an ongoing source of funds. Policy would also allow going below the 20% if it's determined that it's an emergency or something that has significant value to the county or justifiable. But at the same time you do that, you would need to have a plan to recover that fund balance to that 20% level. 3-year plan we suggest, or longer if it's not doable in the 3 years, depending on the economy at the time. Budget development policies, page 7.
Let me ask you something.
Yes,
When
sir.
you were just talking about that 20%, is that an average for most counties, would you say?
For highly rated counties, yes. In fact, the smaller counties would normally have a higher amount than the larger ones, but the 20% in your grouping would be pretty normal, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it is sufficient. The one thing here you could consider lower, and we've seen people with policies that are lower, but in all honesty, when you're east of I-95, there's some reason to have a little higher fund balance than some of the other counties, maybe. But this is still right in the range of normal, yes. Says your budget development policies that you'll be in compliance with the Budget and Fiscal Control Act. North Carolina is pretty specific about the development of the budget. One-time and other special revenues will not be used to finance continuing county operations, but instead will be used for funding special projects. The county will pursue an aggressive policy of collecting taxes and other fees that are due to the county. Budget amendments will be brought to the county board for consideration as needed. These are things that you do most, and a lot of these policies, quite frankly, within the bounds that you normally operate anyway, but would like to see it memorialized. And if you're going to run this county fiscally responsibly, which you have done in as long as I've been around, and I've been with the commission since 1982, you've always been pretty well run financially. You might as well get credit with the credit agencies in the marketplace for doing that, which is to say, put them in a form, written form. We also have a policy on cash management. Basically here just saying that you intend to invest the funds to help reduce the need for taxes. However, as you invest them, they're going to be invested with return of principal or safety as the primary objective, and then it's going to be liquidity, and then the actual return on that investment. So, and that you'll make all deposits and investments in accordance with GS 159, which is the law. Suggests that up to 50% of the agency's money that is to non-county, or appropriations to non-county agencies and to non-debt supported capital outlays for county departments can be encumbered prior to December 31, and that the county manager could approve additional amounts during the first half of your budget year, and then the additional capital outlays and non-county agencies support can be paid in the second half of the year only if the county manager can determine that the revenues are expected to be realized or on course to be realized during the year. And the only thing this does is prevents all of those one-time payments, capital outlays, and payments to outside agencies. If you pay them early in the year, you don't have the flexibility should you have an economic downturn or don't realize your revenues. So it gives the county more flexibility to manage downturns. And here again, this is just a recommendation, and then you use a central depository. You're already doing that. It's just memorializing it. Liquidity, no less than 20% of the funds will be available at all times, or liquid funds. Maturity, all investments will mature within 36 months. This means you're not going out terribly long with the investments, but that's adequate time to get out the yield curve a little bit. Custody, investments will be purchased payment versus delivery, which means you're delivering to a custodian and nobody's getting money for the investment until the investment is delivered to the county. They'll be held in book entry form in the name of the county with a third-party custodian, a safekeeper. Actually, that's also a legal requirement in state anyway, so state law. We've got a list of authorized investments, which include the North Carolina Capital Management Trust, U.S. Treasuries, U.S. agencies that are authorized in GS 159, commercial paper, which has to be A1P1 commercial paper. That's 270 days or less under the definition of commercial paper. It's an authorized investment, but we would add the language plus having a national bond rating. Those that are not nationally rated or have long-term debt out, hard to get information to see if there is a problem. Commercial paper is about the only unsecured investment that's allowed in the statute. Certificates of deposits are allowed, but they are deemed to be bank deposits, which are already allowed if it's board-approved depository. And those would be collateralized with federal agency or federal securities. Diversification, No more than 5% of the county's investments may be invested in a specific company's commercial paper. And again, the thought there is commercial paper is an unsecured corporate, even though very highly rated corporate security. There's no need to concentrate it in one corporation. No more than 25% of the total investment portfolio may be invested in any one U.S. agency. Some of those guaranteed, some of those are not. But that way you're at least diversified to some degree. And then the allocation, investment income will be allocated to each participating fund or account based on a fair and equitable formula determined by the finance director. And you would be required to allocate the interest back to the particular funds that were involved in that central depository. I don't know, I threw a lot at you at one time, but if
Not
there-
tests right now, is we get a little bit of time to study. Right?
That's right. But any immediate questions or concerns you have with the policies?
Mr. Chair, just, over the years, we've changed the policy, but we have kind of always understood where we were on fund balance, but it has changed. It has, it was to state a minimum of 8%, but we always knew that we needed to
Correct.
be above that because of, the proximity for storms and things. And when the budget was a little smaller, it was a figure. A figure was came up with. It seemed good about the time I got on the board, and then we went to a percentage, and then we dropped. But that formula has kind of varied over the years. I should say undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Sometimes that gets confused between fund balance and undesignated.
Well, exactly, and part of that is the accounting standards changed a few years ago. We used to talk about fund balance available for appropriation, which is defined in the statute, and that's unencumbered fund balance. Now, the available fund balance is very similar to the old fund balance available for appropriation. So it's just new terminology to some degree. And I can tell you the 8% fund balance, not that you ask it exactly, but the 8% fund balance was really based on cash flow. Counties receive their funds and cities primarily in December or January, very often as much as 40 or 50%. So when you get to June 30, you could have as much as 6 months to go before that major flow of your annual income comes in. So that 8% was really keyed more just to cash flow, being able to pay your bills on time. There was nothing built into that 8%. I can tell you that because I'm the one that set that standard and actually did the analysis on it. But it did not include money for emergencies and opportunities.
Yes, a question, Mr. Chairman. What's our credit rating? Can you tell us now the credit rating, Mike?
Your current rating, you're a AA2 and a AA minus, so you're in the AA category by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's, which is an excellent rating. AAA is as high as you can go. So
Compared to other counties in the area, we're probably
you're on the
top.
probably on the high side, yes. But I can tell you it's one of the faster growing counties and some of the things going on. There is room for improvement, which is part of what we're looking at with the policy. S&P has just come out with something, and they are actually, they do a management evaluation, and these kinds of policies are the types of things they would expect from a AA county. And again, the numbers in here don't have to be. We can help you with any of those at any time. Just let us know, and we're always available to discuss them. But we thought we'd throw this out as pretty good starting point in what I think a county like Pender would probably be looking at. Again, some of those numbers are a little bit on the high side for your debt levels, but when you're a growing county, you have to have some latitude, and the rating agencies understand that your growth numbers will help offset the debt, but they understand, like Wake County is high, and Johnston County has some higher numbers in their policies. But yours, and these are good numbers, but they give you good flexibility.
Anyone else have any?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. In reviewing the material presented today, on page 6 in the second paragraph, and not to belabor your explicit presentation this afternoon, you mentioned that if the fund balance fall below the desired percentage, we are given 36 months to implement under our current policy a new plan of action, correct?
Right, you would have 36 have a plan to get that fund balance back to the 20% level within 3 years. And I believe it says, or some other appropriate period,
Yeah.
as determined by the board.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
My question is just forward thinking. Have we ever given any, and I suppose this question is probably for staff, have we ever given any preliminary thought, or there may be already in action, a what-if plan in case this happens, that we already have a preliminary plan in place and how we would restore those funds? And I know that depends on a lot of changing economic factors.
Commissioner Tate, that's one reason, we talked about this past spring in the budget process, when Ted Cole, the associate with Bob, was here, talked about some of the different scenarios for debt policies and so forth. That's one of the things that I would like to go ahead and put in place. Do you want to have 36 months or 60 months or whatever? And a good example is if you have a hurricane that comes through, you had to dip into fund balance, was it a legitimate reason, but it's also a legitimate reason to have something in place to build that back. And that's the primary example.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. No other questions?
I can
Did you
provide you
wanna-
with additional information. When we talked previously, there was a booklet about 100 and some pages long that had the different ratings of the different counties in the general area that Ted had put together. If y'all need to recirculate that for you guys, I would be glad to do that.
Well, and we're probably going to have more questions as
Right.
we grow a little bit, because as you start looking towards building a new law enforcement center or jail and projects of that nature, it's going to impact our rating, I'm sure. And I'm sure how we borrow the money and the price we pay for our money are factors that you're going to consider in that. But we just bought a water plant, or just financed a water plant, and we're looking down the road at at wastewater, which is supposed to pay for itself. I mean, I understand that, but all these things I'm sure can affect what we're talking about today.
We looked at some numbers on some of those capital needs that the county has. That's what kind of brought us to the conclusion that with that kind of pressure coming, you probably need to get some policies in place that'll help guide you when you start prioritizing and scheduling out when you can really afford things, because you put in these ratios, and as you look at a capital plan, you may see we're getting over 15% of our budget, therefore we'll scale it back, push it out a year, or prioritize. But that really just says what your debt capacity is for a lot of those debt service numbers. The debt policy is the way it was established, the maximum risk that it's willing to take and the amount of debt you're willing to take. Which also affects your capacity, because if your rating goes down, your borrowing costs go up, and hence your capacity to farm goes down.
Yeah.
So it all kind of meshes together.
Yeah.
Also, another reason I wanted, in this case, Bob, and since Ted couldn't be here, is that you heard a lot of the city of Detroit defaulting and other places, Birmingham. Well, they got in a lot of trouble because they were backloading their debt. And that's why you get back to the 55% rule as well. And state law is also a 4 times rule. You can't have a maturity 4 times greater than the first maturity. And that's the same type of rule that is in place to accomplish where you won't try to backload all your debt on general obligation debt.
So it all falls back to planning,
Yes, it does.
planning for your future.
Yes, it
and your
does.
debt and your everything else, yeah.
And this all fits in with that planning process. That's why we brought it
Mr. Howard, we appreciate it. Thank you for coming in and talking to us today.
there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Butch.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 3, recognition of Amanda Barbie. Honorable mention, North Carolina Public Health All-Star, Ms. Moser.
Since I think I have several of the next items,
Yeah.
would you mind, Mr. Brown, coming down here and presenting these to the recipients of those individuals that were recognized? This is a little bit of a surprise to Amanda because she didn't realize that she was submitted to the North Carolina Public Health Association All-Star program for her work in public health. But she had done such a great job. I think she explained and talked to you on occasion about the Get Alarmed grant and installing smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in homes. And part of the recommendation was about what all she achieved as she implemented this grant. And I just wanted to point out that she noted that over 80% of the homes that she went into did not have working smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. And 90% of those that did have them, they weren't installed correctly. But she has been in 108 homes in our county. They've installed 325 smoke alarms, 101 carbon monoxide alarms, traveled 1,400 miles in the county, and assisted several families along the way. One family who had lost their home twice to a fire, and they still didn't have adequate protection with these alarms, and bringing that up to speed. So we just wanted to recognize Amanda, and she has received the North Carolina Public Health Association Public Health All-Star Honorable Mention. So Amanda? Then I'll go on, because the next one's Kathy Barnes. Okay. Okay. The dental mobile unit has really exploded in this past year. Now that we have it up and running and going to all the schools, and we have Dr. Kathy Barnes, who came to join us on staff. She was recognized at the North Carolina Public Health Association, and she was chosen as a Public Health All-Star. She has, in the 9 months that she has been working, she has seen over 800 children in the schools and 100 adults. She's applied over 1,200 dental sealants, and she has just been an excellent asset to the health department and to our dental health program. So, Kathy? Now, also at the North Carolina Public Health Association, they recognize individuals for their years of service in public health. And they start at the 20-year mark. So we had 5 individuals that were recognized at the association last month, and I wanted to bring them up here. And as I call your name, come up here and stand. And this will be more than 135 years of service in public health for Pender County and overall public health. But Linda Lanier is our OB/GYN nurse practitioner, and she has 25 years. And she also gets a pin.
How many years was that?
25.
Congratulations.
Stand right there. Okay. Miss Ann Miller is our WIC director. She also has 25 years. Miss Naomi Morton is our environmental health secretary here at the Burgaw office, and she has 25 years of public health. Mr. Harry Lewis has 30 years in environmental health. And I was also recognized for 30 years in public health as well.
Thank you, congratulations.
But they do such a great job for Pender County, and this is my chance to formally acknowledge them in a public setting. So I appreciate their hard work. We have many other staff that work hard too, and hopefully they'll hang in as long as these individuals have. So thanks, guys.
Ms. Moser, you might as... Okay. I thought you were leaving us. And the next item is item number 6. Ms. Moser is going to be giving us an animal shelter 6-month update.
Mm-hmm. I hope that you have a little bit of an idea of how well the animal shelter's going, because you haven't gotten many phone calls or emails. Maybe that's a good gauge, but wanted to give you an update since April the 15th as to where we are at the shelter. And it's been quite impressive, to say the least. It was definitely challenging to begin with, but things have fallen into place, and I can't thank the county manager enough, as well as commissioners, for providing that support while we made some transitions and changes at the shelter. Also, the advisory board has been meeting, and they've been good support. We have had opportunities for public comment, and I guess the first meeting we had a couple of comments, but they were more in the line of suggestions, and we took a lot of that into consideration. Of course, the security system is complete. We do have a vet, Dr. Audrey Mizrahi, is over there now, and we have a strong medical program for our animals. She's doing a complete exam on them, all the shots, deworming, flea tick, any kind of treatment they may have, say ear infections, skin infections, those kind of things. She's able to treat that and set up medication regimens for staff to look after our animals. We've started a spay and neuter program, so animals do not leave the shelter unless they've been spayed or neutered. And as part of that, then we can also submit a quarterly report to the state and get a partial reimbursement for what we're spending for spay and neuter. And of course, I was here a month or so ago to increase our fees at the shelter as well to help offset that. We've just recently started offering microchip so that anybody that wants to go ahead and pay an extra $15 can get their animal microchipped, and we'll go ahead and register them online that day, because so many individuals will get their animal microchipped, but then they never follow through to fill out the information online. And part of that is tied into the fact that there are some animal welfare laws that have changed, but every animal is scanned when they come into the shelter, and we always try to see if there's a microchip and if we can find out who the animal belonged to, if it's been a stray. Unfortunately, a lot of times there's no information when you do find an animal with a chip, and so you know it's someone's pet, but you can't help them unless they happen to call us or advertisement and word of mouth gets out. Staff also went through software program training so that everything is in the computer, including their medications, their shots. So when someone adopts an animal, they get all that information to take with them when they go to the vet. We're working on our social media sites, and that has definitely started improving. But one of the biggest things is that we have Jewel Horton, and this is Jewel. That's our shelter manager, and she has hit the ground running trying to increase adoptions. We have, since in the last 6 months, adopted about 500 animals out of our shelter since April. I included in your packet the latest inspection. The inspector came September the 19th and gave us very nice comments about the progress that we had made out there. There are a couple of things that we have to repair, and maintenance is working on that, where some dogs can actually chew through link fence, just amazing, and still keep their teeth. But anyway, we have collected in the last 3 months over $8,200 that we can put back into the shelter budget. So this is just some really great progress. The staff has worked so hard. I know I went out last week with Mr. McCoy so that he could see what all we had going on over there. We had the volunteer work day, and Mr. Tate was out there. I've got him in front of a mop and a broom, and so was Dr. Duvall and Mr. McCoy. So a lot of really good things happening, and I can only expect that to continue. You also have these bright green bags, because when someone adopts from the shelter, they're receiving that, and they're also going to receive educational information on how to adequately take care of your pet and be a good pet owner. So that's just the update of the shelter, and just thought you might be interested to know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone have any comments? I was there last week, like Carolyn said, and she and Jewel is doing really a good job out there. I invite all the other commissioners to go out there, and the news media to go out there, because we took some hits. When I first got elected, the first thing I had all these emails coming to me. I didn't know what was going on about the shelter, but it's been really a turnaround out there, and I'd like everybody to go out and take a look, because we kind of modeled it after Brunswick County in a way, and I was amazed. There's no smell out there. It's just clean, and they've really cleaned up the areas, and so I really want to say appreciation to Carolyn and Jewel and everything you're doing out there. My daughter is a really animal supporter, and she told me, she said, you get that animal shelter in shape, whatever you do, so. And things are going in the right direction. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Mosher, just reading in the comments, I see that at the bottom it says something dealing with the transportation. Is that causing a problem in the near future? Can you just elaborate on that? So
I have been working with the county manager. At first, we couldn't transport animals to New Hanover for pet adoptions because they weren't spayed or neutered. Now that they are, we could take them to these adoption fairs, but we don't have appropriate transportation. It has to be climate controlled when you're taking pets in a vehicle, as well as when we transport for getting spayed and neutered. And so I've already talked with the county finance officer, and he's worked out a way for us to get a van that meets that criteria through the Animal Welfare Act, to where we will be able to put those animals in there and be able to transport them to adoption fairs. So that is definitely one thing that is next on our list.
So
Thank
that's a requirement.
Mhm.
So regardless
Mhm.
of whether you take them to a vet or you take them to an animal fair or whatever, you've got to have that.
There's several criteria besides climate controlled. And depending on what happens in the future with the Animal Welfare Act, it could be that that will flow over to animal control and their dog boxes having to be climate controlled in the future. So those are all in general statute, and yeah.
Okay.
I think things are really good, working good between animal control and the shelter. It's really working good, and good communications, and it's just, I'm real proud of it.
Yeah, had some good comments here. It's nice to have these kind of comments from our inspector. Anyone else have any comments or questions, Ms. Moser, on this item? Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that, Ms. Moser?
Nope.
Okay. We're going to move on then to item number 7. Advisory Board of Health Handbook Training.
Well, everyone should have received a Board of Health
Right there.
handbook, because with consolidation, and the Board of Health is an advisory board, everything now comes to the commissioners, which are, I guess, our official Board of Health now. So part of accreditation requires that your Board of Health receive training on their responsibilities in that regard. So I provide a handbook to all of our advisory board, our prior Board of Health members, and gives you kind of a little bit of an idea of some of the things that the health department is responsible for and what roles and responsibilities you have as a Board of Health. I'm not going to go over all of the sections, but I do want to point out that and advocate for your public health department. So those are the key pieces that a Board of Health is responsible for. And the only time I think I've ever had to deal with adjudication, it's been a few years ago, that has to do with if you set a policy, such as a smoking policy, and someone does not agree with it, they can file a grievance, so that you would serve as that adjudicating body to listen to their side versus what the county. It's quasi judicial, is that not correct?
Yes.
Yes. But anyway, I just wanted to point out those sections there as far as what your role is. I welcome anybody coming to see me if they have questions within this handbook. And as the advisory Board of Health makes recommendations, once again, I'll be bringing it to you, and I'm on the agenda later for items that have been in front of our advisory Board of Health, so for you to consider. So that's just another notebook that I will do my best to keep up to date, and my main request would be, Madam Secretary, that the minutes reflected that I did share their roles and responsibilities for future accreditation. because they will be looking at that. Do you have any questions?
Kind of, a lot of it mirrors Commissioners' rules.
Okay.
I did look at it a little bit. Mickey bought it to me, dropped it off at my house Thursday night. I did look at it Friday and Saturday a little bit. I appreciate
thank
the
you.
font size.
Oh.
Because it's a pretty big book, and I was like, uh-oh. But it's not that bad.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we're at the time of public comment. Do we have any sign-ups?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. If everybody's had a chance to look it over, we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous. Okay, moving on to resolutions. Item number 11, resolution authorizing issuance of purchase order for inmate safekeeping to Brunswick County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Smith.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Excuse me. As you know, we are sending several inmates from the jail out of the county to be kept because of the jail overcrowding. We had when the year started, we were sending them to New Hanover and to Brunswick. Onslow opened up and had a tremendous amount of room, so we actually, Brunswick notified us that they were full and they weren't going to be able to keep them, so we took that PO and switched it over to switched it over to Onslow County. Which is a very big PO. Since then, Brunswick has said they can keep females for us, and Brunswick County keeps them a little bit cheaper than Onslow County does. So we're coming back to you for another PO, smaller PO for Brunswick County, so we can keep sending, at least send a few there. Just to let you know, last week we hit a record. We had 29 that we are paying out of the county. If we would have kept them in jail last week, we would have had about 110 people. So obviously the jail,
On that corner.
cannot handle that. That's right. And 92 beds is all we have, but of course, as we've all learned through classification, that doesn't even work because you have to keep people separated. So it's, again, nothing you don't know, but just a reminder as we continue to try to work toward another facility that it's really starting to cost us now.
You said last time it was about $500,000 we spent in a year on transport.
If it does go down, we had a good Superior Court last week. We hope to bring some of them back into county. We've opened up a little bit of space. That's sort of how it works. We work around the court. It goes up and down like a wave. Weeks like last week when we had 29, I think that's about $10,000 a week. So yeah, you're talking, if every week of the whole year was like that, that'd be over $500,000. But certainly we're talking several $100,000 this fiscal year.
So not to mention there's just you leave yourself open to other things beside the dollar amounts when you're moving them back.
Transportation's become, we've since probably since the first of the calendar year, we've doubled the amount that we're actually having to keep off site, and it's we're the liability and the cost of actually moving prisoners around every single day, having them all back to court on the court date when they're supposed to be here. Then when we filled up that night, have to move them out somewhere else to find a place for them to stay. Logistically, the jail staff's doing a wonderful job, and they're working with it, knowing that we are working toward a solution. And even though it may be still a little bit of time away, they're just making it work right now. But it does. The more we move, the more problems that we potentially could have. So again, this is just another PO just issued for Brunswick. They do have some space to help us keep females.
Okay. One day. Maybe
We're all
we'll have to
working
do
toward it.
this.
We know that, and it's we're just we're making it work now. But it's it is. I don't give the jail staff enough credit. Captain Jones is in here right now. It is actually musical chairs every single day of the week. You don't. You miss one prisoner that's supposed to be in front of a judge at 9:30 tomorrow morning and see what happens. Judges don't understand what we're going through, and I think we've sort of been perfect as far as that goes. But it is a feat to get all that done, to have them back when they're supposed to be back, and then when we get full, to actually find a place for them to go and then send them out so they can have a place to sleep at night.
All right. Who wants to make the motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And moving on to item number 12, resolution authorizing approval to include the e-cigarette clause in the county tobacco use policy. Ms. Moser.
I think you did a little foreshadowing on that earlier, didn't you?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. Hopefully, one of the next meetings, I won't have quite as many items on the agenda, but I appreciate your time. Our Advisory Board of Health has been looking at the e-cigarette situation. I think that a lot of you can't help but see the little stores, the vaping stores, vapor stores, whatever, that are popping up everywhere. And the General Assembly passed a law this year prohibiting minors from having access to e-cigarettes. There has been very little research behind these e-cigarettes. I gave you some background about how it's becoming very popular amongst our middle school and high school kids, that the FDA is still exploring what all is in an e-cigarette, and it varies depending on the flavor that you're interested in, but also has still has tobacco in it, has nicotine, I should say, not tobacco. And then there have been documentation through a lot of lab studies about certain irritants, genotoxins, and animal carcinogens. So the FDA is looking into this more in depth, and I would expect that there will be some more rulings coming down from the CDC and the FDA whenever the shutdown gets settled and all those good things. But aside from that, our Board of Health, our Advisory Board of Health, would like to recommend that, one, we specifically amend the Health Department's policy. This is in relation to accreditation also, to include no e-cigarettes in on Health Department grounds or in the building. We have had one individual that came in with an e-cigarette, and we just asked them if they would mind to not smoke it in the lobby, and they were agreeable. I have since been into a couple of restaurants in the county where there has been e-cigarette use, and I've had complaints from some residents of the e-cigarette vapor coming out, because evidently this secondhand vaping, they try to say is just water vapor, and it's really not. There are a lot of additives and possible carcinogens in them. So, one, we want to add not just tobacco prohibition, but also e-cigarette prohibition at the Health Department and 50 feet from the Health Department building. And then the county policy as far as no smoking in government buildings and 50 feet from government buildings, to add that and prohibit e-cigarettes within 50 feet of county buildings, and then county property, which would include your Parks and Rec. So those were recommendations from the Advisory Board of Health.
Ms. Moser, what is the vapor made out of, or what is the substance that's coming out of it?
It depends, because there have been a lot of studies where, gosh, I can't think of, it's some kind of hydrochloroethylene. I don't know. There's things that have been in radiator fluid that no one can, there's no one governing what you make up in this. It's just like when spice was out there and anybody could mix up their own spice. Now they can put whatever kind of flavor and then add, they add nicotine, and they also add any of these other irritants. And the intent honestly was to help people to quit smoking, you know, to go off of cigarettes. then start taking the e-cigarette, decreasing, I guess, the amount of nicotine. But since then, of course, it's been abused just like everything else. And there's no proof that the vapor is not just as dangerous as secondhand smoke from a cigarette.
So there's no proof there, because in cigarettes, it's the smoke that kills, correct?
Well, also what they're inhaling as well. Yeah, there's no oversight in these things.
Comment. I saw on TV the other night where one of them blew up. It was like a missile. It was showed on, they showed whatever it is, it took off like a missile to the top, in the roof of the house.
I wouldn't be surprised, and they're fairly expensive too, I've noticed. And then you buy these little cartridges, and some of these cartridges have as much as, I think, equivalent to like 4 packs of cigarettes in them, and these people were smoking them, and they think they're reducing their nicotine intake, and they're really not when they smoke on them all day like that. I also I wanted to note that the Board of Education also passed a ban, not just, they've included e-cigarettes as part of a tobacco product, and that is banned on school campuses also.
And let me just say this. I think everybody on the board knows years ago I voted against banning tobacco use on county property. I thought, I'm not going to go back down that path, but I did support a ban 50 foot around all the government buildings. I did support that ban, and at the time, the majority of the commissioners on the board also supported that ban.
And county vehicles, according to the personnel policy.
The what?
And county buildings, according to the personnel policy.
Yeah, the county vehicles, yeah. What this is, it's because we don't really know how many of the e-cigarettes, depending on who they're manufactured by, what's in them. We don't really know what's, if you want to call it a good one, what's a bad one. People want to smoke, that's their right to smoke. But it's just about incorporating the e-cigarettes until we know if they're truly dangerous or not. Incorporating the e-cigarettes with the county tobacco policy. You're just adding the e-cigarette to the county tobacco policy is basically what this is doing.
That's right.
It's not saying people can't smoke them, but you can't smoke them within 50 foot of the building, just like they can't with cigarettes now.
What is it? Is that park? Ward of parks, is it you can do it in vehicles? In the parking lot, yeah, at the parks. Yeah, I guess just like anything else, it's subject to be challenged, probably.
Well, I was going to say, but this is only applying to the health department, correct?
No, this is actually talking about being a part of the tobacco use policy.
That the county already has.
Well, that's not what this says, because I would have raised issues about it if it hadn't said health department.
One of them was approving the health department, and then also to add the e-cigarette to the county personnel policy.
Well, if you add the e-cigarette to the county personnel policy, doesn't that include the health department?
Yes, but I need specifically for accreditation,
You need it for your.
specifically for the health department, and then the advisory board of health was recommending that it also be changed for the county policy.
Well, can I say this, and I'm gonna be kind of done with it. I understand where you're coming from as far as what you need for your accreditation at the health department. But I'm pretty much like the chairman said, I'm not a person to tell a person what to do as far as they want to smoke or something. Now, especially with this is not considered as being a tobacco product, that's where my issue lies at with the e-cigarette. But with that first one, dot where it said for the recommendation for the e-cigarette at the health department, I can agree with that. But I'm just going to have concern with that second one and that second book.
And I apologize, I don't have the second one in my book.
Well, it's right there in our background. If you look at the request for board action, item number 12, got 2 bullets.
Yeah, the main page for item 12.
The main page.
Not in the resolution itself.
Okay, well, I think there are problems with trying to do it otherwise because an e-cig is not smoking. For instance, it's perfectly legal to use an e-cigarette in a restaurant because it does not meet the definition of smoking,
Yes.
which is, and I'm going to 143-596, the use of lighted cigarette, lighted cigar, lighted pipe, or any other lighted tobacco product. An e-cigarette is not a lighted
not a
tobacco
tobacco
product.
Right.
And what I was reading was what you had here about it being in the health department.
Okay, it's also on the front page then of the resolution with the background.
Yes.
Because the county policy also prohibits tobacco use. And with this having nicotine in it, we were tying it in and adding
And
e-cigarette.
the basis of that is,
For the protection of the public's health, just like the Board of Education has done.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a move, we table this till we get a chance to look at it a little bit more.
I'd second that. if it
Unless
comes
you
to
got
a
to have it before, I know you need it, there's two things here, your accreditation
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
But if we table this to the next meeting, is that gonna,
No, I'm fine with that.
okay, just so we can, let's just, I would suggest that so we can, everybody's on the same page and we clear the air instead of talking about this another 30 minutes.
Are you thinking this is more of an ordinance type?
well,
Because it's
let's
a-
just, yeah, I mean, because the issue is it was defined, some of the authorities for smoking bans. Now, you're exempt under 599. The health department is exempt. So that's why when I was looking at the recommendation there, that didn't send up any red flags. Because you're treated differently under, and it's 143 and it's 590, there's a whole section of them. You're treated differently. But I'm not sure how we square that, given the fact that an e-cigarette is not a tobacco product. At
It
least
just-
as I understand them.
Right. It just seems like if the Board of Education could do it, that we could, but I'm fine with tabling it. You know, they serve as the rulemaking body for the Board of Health now, and so that's part of their role, is to be able
Could I
to.
ask one quick, are there any other counties that have done this already around here?
New Hanover has, and I don't know what other counties have done, but
But-
I know there are counties across the state that have done it.
That's for the accreditation, well.
No,
That's
no.
for the government.
They are including e-cigarettes in tobacco products, and the prohibiting tobacco products and e-cigarettes.
Okay, and not to drag this on anymore, just to clear something, but for accreditation, you've got to ban it. You've got to have some
We
kind
need
of
to
policy
add
in
it into the
place
policy for the health department.
Okay, and we'll talk about that and put that together for maybe the next meeting.
Mr.
Well,
Chair.
we just do our due diligence, that's
Yeah.
all.
Mr. Chair, if you want to entertain that motion, Mr. Commissioner
Yeah,
Williams,
we
I
had a,
second.
okay, so
To
Mr. Williams
table.
making a motion to table the item, and
Yeah.
you're gonna make the motions second, or you're gonna make second? All those in favor? Vote is unanimous. We'll table
I'll
this
probably
item to
wind
the
up
next
voting
meeting.
right for it, but, let's do it. Let's-
No, that's fine. I'll get with Trey.
Okay.
Um,
And we're gonna move on to, the next item, which is for you also, resolution authorizing moving, temporary part-time shelter attendant position to a full-time employee.
Did you skip one?
Did I skip one? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the,
It's about
West
the
Pender
medical sponsorship for the.
School-based health center.
Yeah, West
Right.
Pender School-based health center. Sorry about that.
No,
I was
that's okay.
rushing.
That's fine with me. I put in some background. I think that PATH has been to the commissioners before and informed them about their grants that they've received to start school-based health centers in the county. And the first one is at West Pender, which is one of our neediest schools in the county. They have run into problems with medical sponsorship, leaving them kind of high and dry here at the last minute as they want to open up, because the facility is out at the school, but they don't have medical sponsorship. I presented this to our advisory board of health, and they were in agreement that the health department could serve as a medical sponsor with that. There would be no county money. This is strictly PATH providing grant dollars, so we would bill for her services to PATH. And then we would also be billing Medicaid and insurance and being able to keep that to where it can help to sustain the school-based health center.
Okay, anyone have any questions or comments? Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Well, we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, accept it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this item. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous. Thank you, ma'am. Now you can move on to number
Thank you.
14.
Last and not least, one of the reasons why I think the shelter has done so well is that we have a part-time, quote, temporary individual that has been putting in a tremendous amount of hours. Darlene Cluis has been out on FMLA, and so we have been shorthanded. She will be back the end of the month, we hope. But aside from that, I've talked with Denise Mulholland because of my concern about, in terms of risk management, of having 2 people staff the shelter on Saturdays and Sundays. If someone were to get hurt, fall on a slick floor and bust their head on the concrete, or we had an angry individual, or, a dog went wild and started hurting someone, they really need extra backup. So this is in keeping with trying to maintain a set number of staff out there to where we can make sure that we don't run into any of those liabilities. And I think that, this temporary part-time has just ended up having to put in more time. Staff can't even, they feel bad when they have to take a day off because they know it's going to leave the shelter shorthanded. So one of the reasons I feel like we've been able to keep such a clean facility, and we've moved to 2 and 3 time a day cleanings out there instead of being limited to once and maybe a spot check, is because we've had adequate staff. So I'd just like to move this position from, I wouldn't even say temporary, but or part-time to permanent position.
Ms. Roach, how many employees are there over there now?
We have 3, let's see, Jewel, Susie, Danielle, and then Darlene is the 3rd who's off, and then a part-time.
So it's
2.
basically be 5 full-time, if
Mhm.
the part-time goes to full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's working how many hours part-time? A bunch, I know.
Well, her last time she had 91 hours.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
I could definitely see they need the help out there, I can tell you.
Mhm.
They do.
With a telephone, sure.
Well, if
Well,
you
no,
need
I
to-
can't make that call. I was going to say something anyway, Mr. Chairman. I overstepped when I even said just a response. But,
That's all right. If-
um,
Go ahead.
But I told her, that there's a couple barometers, or about 3 barometers I use. That's the phone calls, the emails, and the either praise or verbal assaults in public that you get. And it's not really verbal assaults, but you can get some pretty good ones. It's an emotional topic. But from someone I would consider that they're an advocate, but might have been taken by somebody as possibly a critic, paid me a compliment when I was at the doctor's office today in the lobby. And that, this is not staged. I just, there's nothing to do with this. I said, that's pretty good. I said, thank you for being patient with us, because government moves at a snail's like pace sometimes. But, I told her that the Board of Commissioners has spent a lot of money out there too on the facilities itself, and, tried to spread the credit out a little bit. Obviously, I'm pleased with the job you're doing, but there's a lot of, the county as a whole should be commended for that. So, That's my testimony.
The person that's working the 91 hours for two pay periods, that's basically 40 hours a pay period then?
More than 40.
Yeah, well, a
Yeah.
little over 40, yeah.
Yeah,
So they're basically working full-time now?
absolutely.
Yeah, more than,
More than full-time.
So that goes against, I mean, I guess you can't, you either cut back on services or you're gonna violate the spirit of why they're out there because you're sitting there, you got a part-time person working full-time.
Right.
Right.
Well, anyone have any other comments or questions?
I have one for clarity's sake, where's the money coming from?
We're already paying her now.
Well, you got
But,
they qualify
but
for some
no,
other things.
I would imagine that we'll work with the county.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll prioritize that budget and see if there's any savings within that budget itself. If not, then we will, within the animal shelter budget. And then if not, which I don't think we will have, but we'll check it anyway.
Mhm.
And then if there's not, then we'll have to take it out of general fund contingency.
And since July, I reported that I've already brought in $8,200 from fees and donations. So,
Well, I mean, I just wanted for clarity's sake, because, yeah, we're spending the money out there for the time, and I'm for this, don't get me wrong. I just, but, you know, the benefits part of it, you know, that is a factor, and I don't want somebody to think I'm gonna sit here and vote not knowing what I'm voting on.
Ms. Mulholland, how much of an increase would that be basically? Do you have those numbers by any chance?
Numbers, 5,800 for benefits. I'm trying to calculate the 7.65% in my head. This is the portion that's above and beyond what she.
That's what I'm talking about.
Part-time,
Mhm.
so
mhm.
7,500, I don't quote me, but I have to calculate. I don't have the
Mhm.
The difference in money-wise, they get the delta, and then, you know, total out.
She's already being paid the same
Yeah.
per hour as what
Mm-hmm.
any other attendant is.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, we can put it to a motion.
Want to
then.
make a motion? We definitely need that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, item number 15, Mr. Mack. Resolution by the Board of Directors of the Rocky Point Topsail Water and Sewer District approving the award of a base bid, and I'll let you finish.
Well, thank you, Chairman, Board of Commissioners, for allowing me to participate in Carolyn Moser Day here in Pender County. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I am requesting consideration by the Rocky Point Topsail Water and Sewer District to approve the award of the base bid for the rehabilitation of the regional sewer lift station in Rocky Point to Dunright Services. You can gavel it.
You need to open as the Rocky Top.
Yeah,
Water
just
system.
turn the
There
hat.
you go. Thank you.
But again, to Dunright Services of Florence, South Carolina, in the amount of $17,876, and authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the project. In the background, you'll see after 10 years of industrial sewer waste by Dell Labs and Cody and the 23 other institutional and commercial customers down there, hydrogen sulfide has started to erode the concrete wet well out there. Anytime that you have wastewater falling, it creates a hydrogen sulfide gas, was actually deadly. One lungful would terminate you on the spot, but it's also very corrosive to concrete. We're getting to a point where it's still superficial, it's not structural, but if we don't do something about it to correct it and stop it, it will become structural, and we could actually, have to do a replacement or have a major consequence out there. So we went out and researched the products that we were looking for. We did find some that we really liked that would not only restore the wet well, but then we're going to coat it and seal it to prevent future degradation. So hopefully we'll get a longer life out of it. We saw proposals from 5 contractors who were carrying the products, 3 or 4 different products that we looked at. Fortunately, lined up the best product and the price was provided by Dunright Services of Florida, South Carolina. We've actually seen their product in place. We've talked to their references. Everyone seems to be very happy with the coating that they're using on this project. So we were asking for the board to consider the lump sum proposal to Dunright Services and authorize the execution of the contract and the purchase order in the amount of $17,876 to Dunright Services Incorporated for the rehab of the regional sewer lift station in Rocky Point. Be happy to try to answer any questions, gentlemen.
Anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Move for approval.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm just looking back to make sure that was the last one for that. We're now back in as our regular commissioners. And we're going to discuss or have a discussion regarding the Biggert Water Flood Insurance Reform Act of 2012, and this is something you wanted on here?
Yeah, and I had forward email, Mr. Chairman, but in the interest of time, and also I know we've got a visitor in here for closed session. I think we've got some more. We've got to talk to WBD about something, and I think we're going to talk about jail property. So I'm going to ask to redistribute this this version of, because I sent a version from Town of Wrightsville Beach, but this one, like there's something wrong with the Town of Wrightsville Beach, because Bill Sisson, I think the world of, has really tried to help me understand this Biggert Waters. When we saw the first presentation, you know, we had been in here for a long time. But when you boil it down, it's some significant potential changes to us and our tax base, and with regards to the flood insurance and what could happen here. I believe the folks at Thompson Beach here know what I'm talking about. They've looked into that. So what I want to do is redistribute this to you guys and ask that it be on the agenda. This has been passed by a lot of other municipal and county governments around here with respects to asking them to kind of step back a little bit and let's look at some of these ramifications on the Biggert Waters Act. And that's all I'm want to take up right now, because you remember the presentation we had, I think, and it was so I'll just ask you.
You mean the 5-minute presentation?
The 5-minute presentation that gave us a deer in the headlight look an hour later. Nothing against the gentleman. It was just a very complex.
I tell you, it's a lot of information to throw at you at one time, and if I had no idea until I saw that that the day that he came in. What was his name?
Spencer Rogers with NCC Grant.
Yeah,
I
Spencer
mean,
Rogers.
He, and even the link. I kidded Cameron about the resolution. I've never seen this many warehouses in a resolution in my life. But it's a pretty. It's something that kind of sneaks up on a lot of us, and it snuck up on a lot of people. Not that it was ever intentional, but now that it's here, there's some serious potential. Is that a fair enough description, Cameron? So I'm going to ask to be put on the next agenda for consideration. That's all I got.
Okay. So we'll have that put on the, if everyone's okay, we'll have that item put on the next agenda.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of that sent out to us before the agenda comes out so we can get a chance to look at it?
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't even ask.
This is the same resolution that's being passed now in different areas.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Same one New Hanover County's taking up tonight, then, is it?
They have modified it just a little bit as far as the resolution that they provide that to the board. That's the last event.
Could you do that?
Yeah, it's under adoption.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Not that we do everything just like New Hanover, but be interested to see what their changes are to it. Okay. Okay. We'll move on to item number 17.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 17, discussion of resolution by the town of Topsail Beach requesting Pender County to hold an election regarding the sale of malt beverages. Mayor,
Mr. Chairman.
how are you doing?
Well, you're not going to get to hear me tonight. I'm still suffering from some surgery I had done on my mouth. So I was going to turn it over to Commissioner Flashhour, and he said, "You got to be kidding me."
Well, So you,
But our speaker did come tonight.
so you made your wife happy, huh?
I made my wife happy, you're right.
Having to limit your talk time.
Very limited.
Okay.
But we have with us tonight Steve Coggins, who is our attorney, and he's been working on this, and I'm going to ask him to come up now and give you some information.
Okay.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly,
Started out good already.
very briefly. The irony is that in a particular kind of shop in the town of Topsail Beach and in Surf City, one can sell wine on premises. One cannot sell beer with less alcohol content on those same premises. It's a result of, well, I feel the tortured history going back over the past, say, 50 years of the referenda that have been used in Pender County going back to 1963, combined with lots of changes in the ABC laws since that time. Combine that with the referendum that the county had in 1993. Combine that then with even further changes in the ABC laws about whether or not a municipality can conduct a local referendum that's just applicable to that little municipality. The town of Topsail Beach did not want to have to come and ask you to conduct this referendum. It regrettably has no choice. We conducted our research on it through the good offices of your county attorney. I was put in contact with the chief administrator for the Alcohol Beverage Commission in Raleigh, who directly put in to the discussions with their deputy counsel assigned to this, and they concluded, based on our inquiries and emails received by me on Friday afternoon and further confirmed today, these two things: that the town of Topsail Beach is not eligible to conduct a referendum, that the only government that does have the eligibility in our laws to conduct a referendum to fix this basically illogical disparity is Pender County. And then I think an issue that was of some concern is, let us suppose that we had a referendum, and interestingly, the exact wording that goes on the ballot is provided by statute. You cannot deviate not one iota from that wording that's provided there in the statute. You got to follow it just like that. So the question was, to use the ballot then, that would be required to fix this disparity, what would be the unintended consequence? In other words, let's suppose, for instance, if there was a vote against that referendum, how would it affect the existing status quo? The answer received on Friday and again confirmed today from the deputy counsel is it would not affect the status quo. In other words, all existing permits that allow the sale of on-premises beer consumption would remain. I told you it was brief. We did prepare a proposed resolution for your consideration so that that resolution upon adoption would then be forwarded to the Board of Elections, and then in sufficient enough time for the Board of Elections and to place it onto the ballot for your May 2014 primary. With that exact wording provided within the resolution that we provided to you.
So we're back to.
Yes, sir. The town's website says they have around 500 residents. That's not what the census shows, although interestingly, they do have 408 voters, which is more than they had residents as of 2010. So that may create an issue at some point. But that's a discussion perhaps for another day. I have alerted our elections director to that discrepancy. So there was that, because when I'd had some discussions with the ABC folks, and they said, well, that they took, again, and there's still arguably some ambiguity to the wording of the statute because it uses a different phrase than is elsewhere used in the statute, which I take it they didn't have an explanation when you got up with
No.
them as to why different language was used.
And they couldn't even point to me an example where they even had to deal with the problem before.
Because it uses, in some places it'll say registered voters, in some places it'll make reference to the previous census or the federal census or the decennial census. It just says 500, and so we don't know.
Population of 500 or
Population
more.
of 500 or more, then the town could hold its own referendum on it. Because there are different issues in different places, we'll say. And so that has come up. So I would say to the board at this point, I think that, and I did have a chance to briefly review, and I apologize, I was trying to get online so I could read the emails a little better than on my phone that Mr. Coggins had forwarded to me with regards to the response he'd gotten back from the ABC folks. But unless there's an influx of people in a very short order, so that, which I don't foresee is likely, we always welcome, and I think there may be more people there, but they still aren't declaring it as a residence. I mean, that's that, and obviously during the summer, we could get 500 people that are residing within the town very easily, but they're not permanent residents. So I think that we're going to have to consider it as a countywide referendum, and if the board would like to get some further explanation of what that opens up within the county with regards to, they're not all going to be bookstores that might be able to start selling on-premise beer that now can't.
They would have to make substantial modifications, to that.
So that's again, I take no position, but if the board.
Would that be what's affectionately known as juke joints or something to that effect?
That is, yes, sir. That's the issue, I think, that some folks might have, and that, again, I think the sheriff's got out, but I'd say a year or so ago, we shut down one of those places that was operating without benefit of ABC permits as such an operation.
That particular place you're talking about, if we put this on the ballot and it's approved, what does that do to folks like that?
Well, that's what I'd rather have the ABC folks give you all the ins and outs because they're the ones that issue it, but it is my understanding that then opens it up to what I grew up calling juke joints. That shows, I grew up rural and hoping to be old enough to go in those places legally at some point as well. But
I
that's
guess
a
it
different
comes
issue.
down to also and the voters.
Right, and
what the voters
and that's so that ultimately it rests in the hands of the voters.
And that's why it goes back to me, and I know what you're talking about there too, but yeah, I mean this let the voters decide. I mean, I think so it boils down to me, put it on the ballot, let them decide. I don't want to be making that judgment up here. It'd be hypocritical for one if it didn't, but
And again, this was put on for discussion. If the board wants us to bring somebody else in to give you more information, we can, or we can just put it on for consideration and a vote at your next meeting or whenever.
I'm
the
fine
board
with that,
wants.
but I'm I yield to whatever the majority board wants to do.
What
I'm
about-
in respect.
How close are we to being as far as the deadline with elections? When do we have to have
I
this?
asked Dennis and didn't get an answer, but since the filing for the primary isn't until February, then it certainly, we would have until then to get it onto the ballot.
Well, are you all okay with just having this put on as a resolution on the next meeting, and we can invite somebody to come and talk to us if we want to, and we could listen to what they have to say at that time, but go ahead and dispose of this one way or the other.
And and one of the key provisions that was brought up, and the first, and Mr. Hall had made the contact and put me in touch with the right person, and let me say, as always, he was, worked diligently and very well on getting answers, was that the concern, because, again, is the way that you have to word it, it's if you vote against the sale, that was an issue. Did that mean if the voters said, well, we don't want juke joints, that all of a sudden beer was outlawed as well?
Period, yes.
I mean, period. You couldn't go buy a six-pack at the grocery store anymore.
Right. Fortunately, though, that's not
That
the
is not
situation.
right. That's not that we have confirmed.
Right.
And we both have confirmed with them that would not be the result, because that could be quite the unintended
Well,
consequence.
What I asked Mr. Hall, when I called him about this the other day to try to get a little direction or get some information that we could share with the commissioners on this, I asked him would he be bringing down the same folks that issued the permit and then turned around and took it back away from them. So I was just wondering if there was anyone he could bring down to kind of explain to us what had happened and the reason for that and what we're faced with now. But it sounds like, I think everybody's pretty much getting a general impression of what's going on here. So whatever the board wants to do, I don't have a problem with putting this item on the agenda as a resolution item. And if Mr. Hall wants to bring someone to talk to us about it before we vote on it, that's fine.
Well, if
But I
all,
mean,
if
it's
all
a-
it is to get them to come down here and fall on the sword, for issuing the permit and taking it back, we got better things to do.
No, it's not about that.
No, I don't need to
Don't
hear.
misunderstand what I'm talking about here. If you still have any questions about this, or you have any reservations about it, if you want to talk to the folks with, that was my only comment. Give them an opportunity.
I misunderstood.
No, I don't need to follow, personally, I don't have a problem letting the voters decide what they want to do here. But there may be folks that want to talk to the state about this, and that's fine. I think I got my answer from the state when they issue a permit and turn around and take it back away from me. I don't know that they know what they're doing either. So, it's whatever the board wants to do, but I'm okay, personally, as one vote, I'm okay with putting this on the agenda for the next.
Mr. Chairman, may I proceed with a question?
Yes, sir.
Steve, what's your last name again? I'll
Coggins.
from here saying Steve. How long do your board needs in order to proceed with this? And I know this question's been asked earlier.
I'm sorry.
How long do your board needs in order to proceed with this item being on the agenda, in order to advertise it and meet with their constituents in their districts and so forth and share information?
Well, technically not, because it's simply not something that's within their power or jurisdiction to do anything about.
It's a county issue
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, but it has to go on the ballot, though.
Yeah, but it's going
It
on
has to
our
go-
ballot.
It's going on the county ballot.
I understand
Right,
that.
and the town of Topsail Beach really has no say in it whatsoever, which is why the elected body has come forward to you with a request for you to adopt a resolution.
My only concern would be that it seems like we've discussed this issue rentless times, and I'm ready to dispose of it as soon as we possibly can for that resident who's trying to move forward, so they can
Which
have
we
some
thank you.
directions.
Which we thank you. But if your concern is whether or not it's been appropriately noticed and discussed at Town of Topsail board meetings, the answer is yes, at least 2 occasions.
Actually, my concern was the expediency on your part to make sure you all had enough time to share the information with your citizenry.
Yes, and of course, we're faced with a concern. We would very much for our businesses to be in as competitive a position as possible by the time the season gets here. We don't want it to escape us.
And just for the board's information, even if you were so inclined, we could not hold a special election on this. It has to be at either the primary or the general election. Just like if a bond referendum, we can't hold a special election for it any longer. We have to put it at the general.
And he was talking about the wording and how specific it had to be. This item gets put on, and maybe no one here today can answer that, but how confusing is the ballot going to read?
Actually, I can give it to you verbatim. It's so short. It's really short. You vote for or against this. You check whichever box, for or against, to permit the on-premises and off-premises sale of malt beverages.
Simple as that.
to permit the on-premises
And off-premises sale of malt beverages.
And that, the part about the off-premise, which is required by the former, I mean, again, it's not that anybody's trying to slide anything in there. That's what we are limited to putting on the ballot. That's what triggered the concern about, well, if there's a vote against, does that mean we've just repealed?
The good news is that there's a statute right on point.
No, well, and it will not change the rule.
The status quo.
The status quo will remain regardless of the outcome
Yeah.
of an against vote.
And I think that would be the most,
Okay.
Right.
So it's
Concern
not
most
gonna take
folks.
away or prevent
Okay.
somebody from doing what's already being done.
Correct. Correct.
okay.
That is too short almost. That it does, it raises up a red flag.
Yeah.
What do y'all want to do?
Hadn't talked me out of it yet.
Is anyone opposed to putting this on the next agenda as a resolution item? That might be the easiest way to put it. It doesn't sound like anybody's opposed to it, so I guess we're putting it on the agenda.
We need to get Don Hall here too, don't we? Get him-
If you'd like to talk to Don, Don couldn't really share a lot of information with me on it. He wanted us to
Because
actually
he's
talk.
here, I think.
Is he here?
No, I mean, if he would come to the next meeting.
Give him the opportunity to speak if he wants to. Okay, it's just I know we've talked about this in a couple of meetings, and so,
So next commission meeting, we just gonna vote on resolution and putting a yes or no on the ballot, or just putting it on.
we'll vote, pass a resolution to put this on the next ballot.
And we're talking about the next meeting of this month, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the next meeting should be this month's meeting.
Thank you very
From
much.
the ninth, yep.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're at the time of the evening for items from our county attorney, county manager, county commissioners. Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have a number of items for closed session tonight. And it will be 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I wanted to let the board know that I was in court this morning, unfortunately all morning, with nothing getting heard in the Janice Kennedy matter, she was the health department employee that was let go because she had submitted false timesheets. The hearing has been set in that matter, which will basically be the judge sitting as an appellate court judge for November the 6th. It will actually be heard in New Hanover because they have those. We do not have another term of court and Pender until November the 18th. And I'll keep you apprised as that moves along. There are obviously a couple meetings between now and then, but I just wanted to let you know. Was down there, and we will have, again, a number of items for closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I think I had requested, I've got a visitor here that I had put in a request a couple weeks ago, I think, just to give us a few minutes. It won't take long at all, I'm sure it's probably.
And that was included on the items list.
It's
Yes,
gonna
sir.
be the shortest one out of all of them. I would respectfully request we let him come in and talk to us, and I think WVD's waiting for us down there.
Okay, and I
So
think
there-
there's another gentleman here also that needs to come in probably right behind that.
That's
We'll just-
probably gonna take the longest, I would think. I don't know.
That
Not
one?
mine, not
No,
mine.
no. Down the road there, it's
Yes,
gonna
sir.
take the longest, I would imagine. Okay,
Clarify what items?
3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, sir.
We didn't go to commissioners, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
I'm-
rushing.
Mr. Manager, you got anything?
Just a reminder that the dedication for the tractor shed out at the Penderley Homestead is this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. So we hope everybody can get out to the tractor shed dedication ceremony at the Penderley Homestead Museum.
Okay. Mr. Tate?
Just to thank the staff for the paint ribbon event. I know Pat Simmons worked very hard on that. It was very interesting and gratifying both to come out that morning and see so many staff members out lobbying for the cause for cancer cure and research and so forth. And then later that week, Pat and I went to attend the invitation of Danielle New, who's a
teacher at Pender High to speak to their class on such an issue. And just amazing what those young folks are doing to commemorate such a worthy cause. I yield my comments now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tate.
Like I say, I thought it was a really good day for Pender County with the York House. Today we celebrated the opening of the York House, and it was a really good turnout here. We had a lot of people here, and county manager's here, and Mr. Tate and I attended, so I thought it was a really good day for Pender County. Also, I'd like to say I'm really impressed with the idea that Walmart's considering locating in Pender County, Virgo, and Surf City. I think it's going to be good for our tax base, and they're going to bring in at least 200 people at least. So that's a really good day for Pender County, I think, when that happens.
Okay. Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, so, and I guess this is, will reflect from our last meeting. I was just wanting to see how we're looking. I know during our commissioners, I asked that we have Mr. Collins come in and see about our emergency response, how we handle that, and what would happen if a situation occurred in Pender County, what's the measure and what we have in place. And I just didn't know how that was coming along, Mr.
It's coming along really good, and I talked with Tom about that right after you and I discussed it, Commissioner Ward, and he's putting together a program for us, and I think he'll be coming in on the next agenda on the 21st to look at that, and then also in light of these recent events that's occurred domestically here within the country, we're looking at taking a step further as far as office security goes, as far as safety here in the county. So,
thank you, sir. We'll look forward for that next.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr.
Speaking real
Williams?
quick, I just got to give some kudos out in the Hanover Regional Medical and the Women and Children's Hospital. They just do a fantastic job. Some, had a reason to be there firsthand, all was well, but it was incredible bunch of folks. Thanks for stopping by me. Appreciate that.
Although, I guess with that being said, we can go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we go into closed session under items 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor? Vote is unanimous.
Take a quick break.
Sure.